Hi guys, welcome to today's video. Today I'm just going to discuss something a bit more light-hearted, not really work per se, but I just want to have a talk about games which I've played and games that I particularly enjoyed, and I've tried to rank my top 5 games that I've played. Now, these aren't in any particular order. It was hard enough to whittle down 5, let alone actually put them in any particular order, but it was quite interesting when you're obviously thinking about doing this, because there were a large number of games out there to choose from, and there's a lot that I'm not even going to mention today that I've thoroughly enjoyed playing. But let's move on quickly. So first game I'm going to talk about is Dead Space 2. One of obviously it's a very atmospheric game. If any of you have played it, I obviously don't want to put any spoilers in there for you guys. So if you haven't played Dead Space 2, I would play Dead Space 1 first, because it does carry on from there, and it may be a little bit confusing if you don't play Dead Space 1. However, so the atmosphere in Dead Space as a whole, and especially in games 1 and 2 was fantastic. The combat system was unlike anything else that I've played. So, for example, usually when you're playing games that involve shooting, you'll be aiming for the head most of the time. However, in the Dead Space games, you aim for the limbs, because you have to incapacitate them. You have a much bigger variety of enemies in Dead Space 2, Dead Space 1, and you got character progression in terms of you get power nodes, and you can allocate power nodes to various different parts of your rig. So, for example, you can get more air, or you can become more powerful, or whatever it might be. Dead Space 2 is a fantastic game. It's unfortunate the way that Dead Space 3 went, because they simply have too many enemies in Dead Space 3. So whereas they relied previously on things like jump scares, in Dead Space 3 you just swarmed with necromorphs all the time. Obviously, necromorphs are the enemy if you haven't played it, which actually takes away some of the atmosphere. Which is a shame, like I said, because there are some good fundamentals in there that can make a good game. But Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 1 I was close to putting on this list, because it was the original. However, Dead Space 2 is the better game without a question, in my opinion. The next one was a really difficult one for me to decide, because I'm a big fan of the Assassin's Creed series, and I started off by thinking about Assassin's Creed 2, and you have obviously the mechanics in terms of building your little village, and that gives you better kind of equipment, it gives you more money and so on. But then in Brotherhood you unlock all of the shops and revelations, you've got bombs, and there's just lots and lots of things to do in each of the Assassin's Creed games. Now, I can appreciate the Assassin's Creed series is not for everyone, but I just kind of really enjoy exploring these areas of history. I was also close for Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, because Italy is one of my favourite places to visit, and actually being able to play in these areas like Florence and Rome was very enjoyable for me. However, Black Flag is ultimately for me the one that I've had the most fun playing, because you're kind of fusing together being an assassin and being a pirate at the same time, which is really cool. So you have ship battles, you have underwater wrecks to explore, you have all of these cool places to visit, like Barbados and so on. And it's really, really cool, and some of the best supporting characters in an Assassin's Creed series to go with that. However, like I said, there are many other really good Assassin's Creed games. Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, Revelations are all great games. Syndicate, Unity wasn't as bad as what people said, but Syndicate is a better game in my opinion. And of course the new game, which is Origins. Although ironically, I don't feel that I've had as much fun playing Origins as some of the other games. I can't really put my finger on why, but there is a lot of space that isn't used in Egypt that probably it could have been omitted. I mean, it probably would have been better, if they would have actually taken some of the areas out and made some of the parts of the desert, more full of things, I suppose you could say. And Origins is a very good game, but I just preferred Black Flag. If I was going to play one now, it will almost certainly be Black Flag. But there's lots of great Assassin's Creed games out there, and this is why it's such a strong series. Now, one of the other series that I particularly enjoyed playing is the Resident Evil series. So Resident Evil 4 is the standout game here. So, for example, in the original first 3 Resident Evil games, it was played from a third-person view where you had static cameras looking down, which could make some quite clunky controls. However, I thoroughly enjoyed playing those games, but Resident Evil 4 was the first over-the-shoulder shooter, and it vastly improved the game. There's a wide variety of locations when you play Resident Evil 4, so you've got the Ganado village, which is in the picture here. You've got the castle, which is one of my favourite locations in any computer game that I've played. Bags of atmosphere all the time. It's the big difference between Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 5 was okay, but Resident Evil 6 was a pretty poor game. And there's no atmosphere in Resident Evil 6. Again, similar to Dead Space, there's just way too many enemies, and some of the things that happen, the things that happen in Resident Evil you take with a pinch of salt anyway, because people that say they're not realistic, well, they're not realistic, are they? But at the same time, in Resident Evil 6, you have players taking a rocket launcher to the head and surviving. That makes no sense at all. However, in Resident Evil 4, you've got some intense boss battles. So, for example, El Gigante, you've got the big whale who lives, I forget the name of the lake. You've got the chief battle with the guy in the village, and so on. And of course, so the Chainsaw Ganado, which is the guy in the picture here, was one of the standout moments. That guy's not a boss, but it doesn't make him less difficult to beat. So, again, shout outs here. Resident Evil Remake, I've got there because the remake is better than the first game. If you haven't played the remake, I would really recommend that you do it. It's a good game. Resident Evil 2 and 3, both games, although they will look quite dated if you play them now, but they were games that I thoroughly enjoyed playing at the time. Now, there is no Resident Evil 7 on here because I haven't played Resident Evil 7 yet, but based on what I've seen, I'm looking forward to playing that game. Skyrim is one of my favourite games ever that I've got hundreds and hundreds of hours of gameplay in this. I've played it on PC and Xbox, both iterations of it. And again, you're looking at the whole atmosphere and the immersion. This place, Tamriel, is like this living, breathing space that people have been in for years. And wherever you go, the whole locations are very well mapped out. They've got things to read, people that have lived there, and they've got their own stories. Now, what I would say is that the actual stories themselves within Skyrim aren't amazing. Especially the main story is actually not great. Some of the side missions are better, such as the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood quest lines are much better. But as a whole, Skyrim is up there because of the atmosphere and the immersion. Now, I'm not a PC player, but obviously if you were a PC player, you'd have lots of mods for Skyrim as well. People have been doing this for ages. However, there is some good DLC available for Skyrim, such as the Solstheim quest line and also the one with the vampires, which name escapes me for now. But it's such a good game. You can just immerse yourself in it for a few hours to get away. And of course, The Witcher, which is a truly awesome game. So it's not open world entirely, but each of the sections is big enough that you're not going to be hopping back and forth every 2 minutes. It's hugely varied. So, for example, you can have Novigrad, you've got the Skellige Isles, you've got Velen. It's such an enjoyable place to be, although it is bleak. It's not a particularly happy place, but it's so full of variety. If you're playing on higher difficulty levels, you really have to think about every monster that you're coming up against, because they all have their strengths and weaknesses, as do your weapons. You got highly customizable loadout in terms of the way Geralt looks and the types of swords he has. You can't change the signs that he has, and you need to use those wisely, but at the same time you have to think about how are you going to tackle everything within it. The relationships with other characters are extremely powerful, it's interesting because there's a lot of people that think that because there's like a lot of sex and nudity within the game, that somehow it kind of degrades women. But actually, some of the strongest characters within the game are women. So, for example, Triss and Yennefer and Ciri are all very, very strong characters. Gwent, which is a side game, a highly addictive game, you know, it's so good they've released it on its own now as a game. The quality of the DLC is again phenomenal, especially Blood and Wine, which is almost a game in itself. You know, it's at least another 15-20 hours of content on top of what you already have, and it's entirely different. You know, you have a reason to going to Toussaint, which is the area for Blood and Wine. And it looks so different. It's almost like it's made out of a different color palette. You know, so that's really cool. Now, of course, The Witcher 2 is also a very good game, but you know, it doesn't hold a candle to The Witcher 3, but it is still a very good game in terms of the things that you do and the enjoyment you're going to get out of it. You know, so I highly recommend playing it, but you don't need to play it before you play The Witcher 3, because The Witcher 3 will kind of guide you through everything you need to know. But it does give some backstory, which is quite nice. Now, I just want to mention a couple of other, you know, honourable games. But anyway, you know what I mean. So obviously GTA wasn't on that list. With GTA, I don't know. It's almost because it's in real life, although obviously the events that happen aren't that realistic, but because it's in real life, it almost doesn't quite feel the same for me. But I do enjoy it, and Vice City and 4 and 5 I particularly enjoyed. Now, San Andreas isn't on there. I didn't actually complete San Andreas because there was an exceedingly annoying mission with a plane that you had to pass some pilot test, and I couldn't get past that. I can't remember why, it was too long ago. I've got Shadow of Mordor on there, which was again a very enjoyable game in terms of the Nemesis mechanic and, you know, trying to you know, build your own army, as it were, and Shadow of War built on top of it. However, I put the Shadow of Mordor on there because it was the first game, so therefore it was that bit more original. Football Manager. I've put many hours into Football Manager down the years. Again, it's not for everyone. It's a bit of a slow burner, but you just kind of build your own club up and manage your own team, and hopefully you kind of, you know, get them up the leagues. Red Dead Redemption, a game I really, you know, quite enjoyed as well, because again, you're looking at atmosphere, location, interesting characters, side quests, but it didn't quite make the top 5 for me. But I'm looking forward to the new game that is coming out later this year. Okay, well, I hope you found that interesting. Please remember to subscribe, and I will look forward to seeing you soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.